All right. Welcome, everyone. This is my first attempt at live streaming. I have done these sort of live coding videos for a while, but decided to try doing them as a live stream first to possibly allow some discussion, questions, and a more live environment. They're sort of live streams either way. So let me show you what it is. First, I will build it with CMake. I'll show you more about the setup before we start working. But here is the app, essentially. I'll move it to another desktop. Here's what I have right now. It's called Prompt Workbench. It essentially currently has some dummy pages here and stuff like that. But this is entirely C++ IM GUI app with GLFW for window creation, OpenGL for rendering, OpenGL 3, and I'm going to render the primitive UI elements. And I've applied some custom styling, pretty basic. So currently, what I have and what the idea is to have test suites, which will be user-created suites to test system prompts. And currently you can't create test suites except in the database, but a test suite you can open like this, and it has multiple user prompts related to it and a system prompt. That's essentially what you'll be developing, the actual system prompt for sort of LLM agents, RAG assistants, or whatever. And you want to add multiple user prompts to test against that system prompt / model combo. And we'll use an OpenAI compatible API for now. And then when you have your user prompts and system prompts, the idea is to create a test run and get results. And this is what these result runs will be. By the way, this is currently just roughly output without too much padding between the elements. It's not styled, it's just outputting the data like this. And the result runs will basically have the answers in some form. Currently, I just output the answer text and a date, but they should have the question, the model, the answer, everything, essentially, so that you can compare them. The last step of this will be to be able to compare result runs, and in that comparison, you should be able to see side by side different answers as you change the prompt. And that's the idea. I sort of look at this like a code editor for system prompts. I don't want to say an integrated development environment because I don't want it to be integrated or something like that. I want it to just be specifically for system prompt optimization so that you can craft a very good system prompt and test it against multiple models. So this is basically the functionality. By the way, for data storage, I use SQLite, and this isn't, the performance right now is great, very good. And I even don't work on separate threads. I don't have multi-threading, async, anything. Currently, when I retrieve items from the database, it's blocking. And that's temporarily, of course. But even so, it's super fast, like incredibly fast. On modern machines, at least, it's amazing. All right. So the plan for today, as you can see, I have already worked on this for a while, and I have my database, my setup with my models and everything, but everything is read-only. I've added these test items to the database manually, and I want to now start creating forms, essentially, to actually create items. And it makes sense to start from the top and add the ability for users to create test suites first. But before that, let me close this and I'll go back to my code editor. I'll show you my setup, what I have, how I'll be working. This will be sort of like hour and a half session, depending on how it goes. And I want to essentially accomplish a form, at least a form for test suites. But if time allows, we'll build a form for other database items as well, like user prompts, result runs, etc. Let me just start a quick timer on my watch so that I don't get carried away and stream for 15 hours. Okay, so I have a couple of screens here, but this is my Cloud coding assistant, which I have built with a very simple system prompt to assist me in some questions. I will use it primarily to query documentation for IM GUI or yeah, that's pretty much it, what I'll use it for. Or if I'm just wondering about some C++, modern C++ internal. And I have my NeoVim, tmux setup. These are two terminals basically. And on the left is my project. Actually, let me close the right pane for now. This is my project. It's a very straightforward CMake project. It's absolutely open source. You can access it. I'll make sure to put it in the video description. Actually, let me put it in the chat. It would be more convenient. Yep. So it is available in the chat window, the project repository, and I'll later put it in the video description once this is archived as a video. But yeah, you can check it out if you want to explore the latest code. Here I've also built some entity relationship diagram of my database with Mermaid, but we'll talk about that later. So basically, this is a C++ project, CMake project. I built with CMake because it's cross-platform. And it's not very complicated. We have an app executable, and it uses a couple of libraries. As I mentioned, GOFW, this is, if you don't know, a small library that creates windows on basically all platforms with the native OS layers. It's very simple and lean. It also, besides window creation, it also allows you to handle events on Windows and draw an OpenGL context. That's it. Very straightforward. CPR. This is a C++ library for HTTP requests. It uses libcurl, but wraps it in a modern C++ API. It's not. It's very nice actually. I like using it. And JSON. This is the JSON library. Let me see what it was. Actually, yeah, a very simple JSON parsing library. I think it was Neumann JSON or something like that. Neumann, yeah, it's a hard name. But yeah, this JSON library, very straightforward, small, and pretty fast and minimal. I love it. And IMGUI, of course, to draw with the IMGUI OpenGL 3 implementation. For those of you unaware, IMGUI is an immediate mode graphical user interface library. Very simple and straightforward. It just draws some primitive components and not so primitive. It's very simple, very well. It has a very good API, very complete API. It's very stable and used a lot in the games industry. It also supports multiple renderers. So you can basically, IMGUI just outputs, as it says here, I think. It outputs some 3D pipeline, so just buffers for your GPU. So you can use it with any rendering backend. Like here in the backend, they have implementations from DirectX, GOFW OpenGL, like I do, Vulkan, and many others actually. I think they have a Metal, OS X Metal renderer. Yeah, they do. But yeah, it makes sense to do a cross-platform thing, as you are already. I'm currently using OpenGL 3, not because it's the best. Vulkan would be more performant, but it's the easiest in terms of setup. And later you can migrate the backend. That's not a big deal, to be honest. Okay, enough about setup. I wanna just go forward with the CMake so that I can explain the project. So we link all of these libraries. These are all of them. I also have, of course, OpenGL and SQLite 3 to interact with my database. And here I link my source files. That's pretty much it. Let me see, do I forget any libraries? No, not really. I have GWAT, which allows you to, it's a library to expose OpenGL, modern OpenGL functions from your operating system APIs. So if you've done any graphics programming, this is pretty straightforward. Okay. And besides that, yeah, this is just some script for fonts. Let me just show you the setup now so that you can get an idea what we're working with. So I have pretty straightforward style here. I try to be very explicit, avoid RAI patterns, resource acquisition is initialization, and try to have explicit init and deinitialization functions to allocate and deallocate memory to avoid bugs and be more explicit. That's just my style. Here in the main function, you can see sort of how the app works. We create a database state, whatever that is, database access layer. Then we create an app. We initialize that app and start its render loop. IMGUI is immediate mode, which, if you're not aware, immediate mode graphical user interfaces redraw their UI every frame. They don't build some tree to know when to redraw, they redraw every frame, and this way you avoid managing that state. Now, this app doesn't redraw every frame because it's what is called basically hybrid. I redraw the UI only when there's events, because that makes sense. If it's just sitting in the background and you don't touch it, your mouse doesn't go over it, or there's no component animating, it doesn't redraw and it doesn't use any resources, which is sort of the best of both worlds, kind of. And then we init. And that sort of gives you a very broad overview of the app. This app construct, let me open the header file. Also just, initializes, has the render loop. And the whole user interface here is in this render loop. And the UI layer is composed of two separate things. I have what I call view models, which is not like state in the sense that I redraw the UI on certain state changes, but there are certain data points that are needed for the UI, and they are in this separate layer so that the code is organized, and they closely follow the views I have, like test suits, user prompt details, result run details. I'll show you more about that, and we'll create these, some of these today. And then we have this whoop, which is the main render whoop that happens every frame. Here we have some basic init stuff, but my part of the render whoop is this UI components main frame. And my main frame is just a function that accepts all of my state, view models, everything, my app data, and it just uses IMGUI internals to render something. That's what it does. And that mainframe is the entire UI layer, you can say. You can basically say so. And yeah, that UI layer is right here. And if I open any of this, like this mainframe, it just uses IMGUI primitive UI types. Like the mainframe is a function right here. And it doesn't use too much, but it has this doc space, which is a separate function, sidebar. Everything in IMGUI is pretty much, can be summarized as a function that you just work with, sort of like a state machine with functions. And I have some routing set up here. We'll talk about this. I just wanted to give you a brief overview before I start working. Now, today, as I mentioned, we'll be making, let me run the app real quick. We will be making a form to create test suits, and to do that, we first need to create a new view. So here, there would be a button somewhere. For now, I'll just put it at the top. Don't care about it too much. And that button will open a new view with a form that will have all the fields of test suite. I can fill them and then create the test suite with another button. That's the plan. So let's do that. Let's start with the button and the view. And to do that, I will go to the, let's trace. We have in mainframe, we have this main content right here. And that main content, I'll close the right sidebar so it's not distracting. It has my routing. It's just a switch statement, very simple routing right now. But I need to go to the test suits view, which is just a function. I can jump to it right here. It's just a simple function that currently has a whoop. For each test suite, it creates a what I call card right here, which is just some button with custom button with multiple items. And at the top, before all that happens, I want to add a button, as I mentioned, and I can do so with ImGUI button, I believe. Was actually I have my own. Sorry, I have UI components button. I think I'll open that file to my UI header file to the right, so that I can see the actual functional definition. Here we have components, and I have Boolean button. Yeah, UI components button, and it needs a string for the value of the button. I'll call it create test suite for now. And it's a Boolean because if it's true, it's currently clicked. So that's how we handle events here. It's a little bit weird if you come from something like a web background. The concept that you don't have events, but you just have this if statement on the actual component function. But that is sort of the great thing about Immediate Mode UI, that you don't have events, and that this synchronization between state and what is happening in the UI. Okay, so what this does is, first of all, this will render the button in the UI, and inside the if block, we can execute code that will happen only when you click. And you don't need to worry about some intra-frame bugs, like if I click and there are multiple frames, my hand will repeat multiple times. No, that's handled by ImGUI already. It will execute once, so no worries about that. And now on click, we actually need to route. And I have my routing thing right here. Let me open it right now. It's in routing header. You can get an idea for my style of programming right here. As you can see, I avoid making a class router and creating a new router and stuff. Just because I prefer functional style in general, but I try to avoid object-oriented style because code gets extremely encapsulated and a very, at some point, very hard to inspect. Sort of, there's a lot of hidden things that are happening. But this is a very good example. Like router is just a struct. It has a route, which is an enum, so a value here, and a vector of history. Why a vector, not a stack that I push and pop from? Because that's what I do. A vector because it's better in terms of performance. Vectors are stored with contiguous memory, and they are faster. You can check out some articles about that, but on modern CPUs, a vector is pretty much faster than a stack in almost all scenarios. In terms of caching, cache hits, etc. So here we have a couple functions: init, push, and back. I need the push function, and as you can see, the push function is not a part of a router class, so I need to pass a router instance to it, and that's not a problem because all my views get the router. And you sort of have to pass these items and references through different layers, but on the flip side, you have very transparent flow of data. So yeah, it's a style, I don't know. You can love it or hate it. I'm not the only one doing this. So router push, when we click the button, we push to a new route that we need to define first here in the enum. And I'll call it just create test suite. And I'll move it up. Sorry. I'll move it up a bit, like this, so that it's close to the test suite related routes. And then we can push. To push, I need to pass the router and the route. So that enum. Okay, that's pretty much the button handled. This new route, we need to, first of all, we need to handle it somehow. Let me just close that to the side and go to my switch statement with the routes. Okay, is it not here? Let me see. Probably. I need to go to views. No, components, mainframe. Yeah. Here we have our switch statement, and I have a case for each route. So let me copy that case, and I'll just paste it right here. So if the case is create test suite, I will create a new function here. Essentially, it needs to be a new view, and I'll call it. And I'll pass to it DBA state. It will need the router, the state of the DBA state is the database state. Basically, it needs to do database operations. Test suites view model and user prompt details view model. Well, it will probably need just the test suites view model, I think, to just dynamically add the new test suite, and that should be it. I mean, we can pass it later. Now let's see how to create this new view. I'm checking the actual comments, by the way, if there's any from time to time. So yeah, how do we create the new view? Well, I have some abstractions here. So views are in different CPP files and defined in this UI header file. So here I have namespace view, and I'll just copy one of the items and modify it a bit. As I mentioned, router, test suites view model. Okay, well, that should be sufficient. And now we need to implement that. And to implement that means creating a new file for the view, which is normal in my opinion. I'll copy the details view, test suite details, and I'll call it create test suites CPP. We need UI and I'm GUI. Actually, yeah, I'll remove it if not needed. And I'll call that create test suite. Does not match the decoration. Yeah, it doesn't match it because it has these items right here. Let me see now. Will my LS be fixed? Not yet. Let me open it to the site ui.h. In views. Oh, I didn't rename it. Whoops. So I have 2 test suite details right here and 7 lines up. Okay. Now, if I resave, the OSP should refresh and we have no issues. Okay, I have this component top bar here. For now, this just renders a back button for views that are nested. Later, it will be some sort of breadcrumb slash title bar for the view. Here, I check, in this case, in the details view, if the test suite was loaded correctly. That's not necessary here. For now, I'll just add text with ImGUI, with an ImGUI primitive saying create test suite, and then we'll add the form in its place. But just so that we can see the view and compile and build this. See everything is rendering correctly. Now the final thing before I attempt to run it is I need to go to CMake lists and add my CPP file. I sort of list them like this. I can rework this later so that they're loaded somewhat dynamically. So we have create test suites. Okay. Let me open a side window and I'll run the app now. Let's see if it builds first. Or if we missed something. Okay, it built. That's good. All right, we have our button, which is great. When I click it, we go to the route. That's a good start. Okay, so now at this route, we need to add inputs for the fields of the test suite, which are only a few. let me close that. Let's go to dba.h. This is my database header file, and here I have structs that represent each data type. And a test suite has an ID that's not going to be visualized at all. Title, description, system prompt, and model. So, oops. These title, description, and model will be just one line of text, single line input field, and system prompt should be multi-line. Ideally, in the future, some sort of rich text with markdown support. For now, a multi-line text edit is fine for just this at this stage of the implementation. Okay, so I have two options. I can go to the IMGUI documentation and check out some input fields, or ask Quout to do that for me. I would actually go to the IMGUI documentation to show you. They have some web-based web version of a demo app, which includes all components. And it's quite cool because they include examples. And here we have widgets that are grouped. And if we go to forms, let me just check my chat. All right. If we go to forms, if we have forms, text input we have. So we have multi-line text input. Let me just see where are the actual examples. Here it is. So this is the multi-line. I mean, here we don't have the styles applied at all, but this is a multi-line text input. What else do they have? Like, you can start from this and do something better, basically, or create a completely custom component with some primitives, which is what you would do in many cases. But for now, as I mentioned, I'm just adding some basics and then working from there. Okay. Well, we can do this. Just the basic multi-line text input for description and text input for everything else. Let me see where the code is, because I believe I closed it. Where was it? False source. IMGUI demo. Well, okay, I mean, usually the source code here, apparently I've bogged down the demo and it doesn't follow with the source, but when you hover over these items, it follows here in the source and you can see the actual usage, and then you can press escape here to stop following and copy some API. But for that, I can always just prompt Quout for when I know the component. I can say, how can I use multi-line and single line text input in the IMGUI? And it would easily retrieve that from documentation and implementation. There we go. Input text and input text multi-line. Okay. We have to reserve a buffer with fixed size. And do we have to reserve a buffer? Let's see. Okay. It has an overload that works with std string, which is great in my book. Well, let's do that. So we have input text. Let me go to my create. Actually, It's still not in Git, so I won't be able to navigate to it with Telescope, but it's in Views, Create Test Suites. And here I'll just leave the top bar and have... Actually, I probably need text, which will be title. Let me open to the side the fields because I will forget them probably. Title, and then this multi-line text. Let me go and copy that. The single line text, sorry. So we can overload this. For now, I'll create a static variable. This will be in what I call view model for that specific view later. We'll extract these. But for now, I'll say static std string title. And let's pass it. Yeah, let's pass a reference, I believe. Expected expression. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, maybe there's not an overload to this, is there? Let me see. That's interesting. That might be hallucinating. But I can check that. Just jump to definition. Let's see. Doesn't seem like it. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Either way, it doesn't seem like it can be overloaded with an actual string. So we'll do a character buffer and limit it in size. You would want to limit it in size either way, like with validation, but we'll implement that later. So now I'll pass title. Let me see. What do I want to do? Yeah, basically a character array. Let's do 255 characters for now. And what are we going to do besides that? I think I would, yeah, let's just pass it. There's a macro, apparently. So I'll pass title. Okay, what is expected here? Yeah. Okay. And I can initialize it to empty string, I guess. So this should be the title field. Done. Let's do description. I will do multi-line here. Why does it say label here? What is label? Ah, we have a label into the input text. That's great. Okay. This was my timer for half an hour. So we can do title and description. Let me co-opt this. I like more concise code in terms of line length. It's much easier to read in my opinion. All right. So this is multi-line. I think I can push this further to something like 1,000 characters. I want to know how long of a character string can a text field in SQLite 3 hold. That's important, just so that I know. I guess it's 2 large. Okay, ultra large. Ultra large, but let's have a larger size for now. And finally, I want to check. Let's check how this looks actually as I think about it, and we'll continue with the rest of the fields. I just want to make sure it compiles and that we see our items. We can input text before we duplicate. Okay, title, descriptions. Maybe I've passed. Yeah, I passed title to both of them. Let me just correct that so that we can test the description field as well. And run again. All right. The labels appear on the right by default. Apparently, that's very weird, but whatever. I can adjust this always. It seems to work all right. Let's continue with the next field, which is what? System prompt. It will be a multi-line input. It should be larger. Let's have 10,000 for now. We'll see later. All right. I have a typo here. And model, which I'll leave a string. It should ideally be a user-defined enum, or we can make an API discovery call here and have a select drop-down. Of course, model is still not defined. Let me define it up here. I don't like these, but they're just temporary. All right, let's check what we have. All right, create test suite. We have title, description, prompt, and model. Okay. And we need a button to submit this form, basically. So let's do that. I do UI components button. Like this. And when we submit, actually no, let's just run now, and then we'll do some logic. We'll probably extract these right here to the view model, but first time I want to check if we can actually use strings for real. Okay, great. Now let's investigate this. And yeah, it led me to believe that exists. Okay. So it did hallucinate about that. You can create a resizable callback and resize the text buffer, stuff like that. But a fixed size buffer seems to be a simple solution. I just need to sort of figure out what size they need to be. By the way, what happens if I reach the size? I'm guessing because we passed the size, they have some handling for that and you can't. So I'll set title to 10, just so that we can see. I don't expect it to overflow. It would be very stupid if that's the case. But it shouldn't be, it should just stop inputting. Yeah, as expected. Okay. So I'll leave that to 255, and we'll need to increase that one. But later. Okay, let's create a new view model now. Because I want to extract these. Actually, let me think about it. Yeah. I should definitely extract these. And to do so, yeah, let's create a new view model. Let me check for any comments, stuff like that. No. Well, view models are currently in just one header in CPP file, and later they should be separated in multiple CPP files at least. Maybe it will be a single header, but they have namespaces, structs, very straightforward, like the rest of my architecture. I have a single view model for a single view, but a view can use another view's view model. So what I mean by that is every view that deals with any data, which is any view actually, has its own view model that it has its own personal data. But this view, for example, create test suite, would also use the view model of test suite's view to add the newly created test suite before navigating the user back. Quite straightforward. Okay, so I'll call that create test suite as a namespace in view models, and then I'll create a struct. Create test suite view model. And that struct has to basically hold these values that I just wanted to take out. It's in UI views create test suite. Well, these values right here. Let me remove static. Whoops. Sorry. That got very messy. Okay. Good. So we have these items in the struct, same as they were here. I'll remove them from here right now. And is that it for now? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Later, the action will also be here in this namespace, not the part of the struct or the class. That's how I deal with these view models. But we need to initialize that, and I need to have an init here. So the init returns a view model, sort of like in Rust. And DBA state, we don't need here at all, but yeah, we don't need it. So I need to implement that now in view models CPP. I can take another init. for reference. This file is growing, but still not large enough so that I split it to multiple CPP files. That will happen as well. So the namespace is create test suite. Create test suite view model. That's what we return. Okay. And then the function is again in the create test suite namespace, and it's called init. It's sort of wonk in a lot of namespaces, but it's all right. This just returns a view model, pretty much. Okay. What is that? Why do we have an error here? Expected semicolon after struct. Yeah, one of those C++ specifics I seem to forget all the time. C specifics. And yeah, let's now initialize the view model in, I think it was in the main frame component where we initialized view models. Not at all. It's somewhere else. In app CPP, in the render whoop maybe. Yeah, before the render whoop. And I'll call it create test suite VM. And to create it, just call create test suite init. As you can see, the namespaces sort of speak for themselves. View model, create test suite init. And then we can pass it to the mainframe. And now we need to modify the mainframe. Well, that's what it is. Mainframe. Copy the last line. We need to add a semicolon, comma. Oh, sorry, let me. This stores a reference to create test suite. It passes a reference to create test suite view model. Create test suite view model. Okay. Pass that to the mainframe. And now we need to go to components, mainframe to finally accept it. Right here. Okay. Okay, we pass it. And finally, right here in the route, which is where exactly test suite details, create test suite. We can pass it. Okay. Good. And now we can get it here, create test suite. That's my view model. I need to modify, what is this, UI.h, the header file. I need to add it right here as well. Quite a lot of boilerplate, admittedly, to pass a long state. Very explicit, but I'm hoping it will pay off in the long run. No, don't know. So create test suite VM title. We need to take these from the VM now. From the view model, meaning. Let me copy that. Okay. Whoops. Right here as well. And finally at model. All right, we should be able to build now. Should we be able to build? Yeah, I think so. Let's try. All right, let me drink some coffee. It built successfully. Let me check the chat just in case. All right. Yeah, let's check what's happening. It seems to be working. If the text is rendering, we're good. Good. Well, the last step before, of course, styling and stuff like that, but for functionality point of view, is to actually add an action here. And I'll this time not start from the UI, I'll start from the view model, the action, and go down towards the UI. So let's go to view models. We need an action here. And that action will mutate a view model. So it will be void for now. Error handling is a whole other topic which I don't touch for now. I need something consistent later, but still haven't figured it out what I want to do. So what was I saying? Well, yeah, we need create action, create test suite action. And that action only needs view models, essentially. It needs a reference to create test suite view model. And to the test suite view model. And that is in this namespace. I think I can use this because we're already in the view model namespace here. All right. Semi. Okay. And DBA, which is the database. You can look at it, the database layer. I'll show it later. Okay, so later, in a few minutes, we'll continue with that. I'll take a quick break because we've been going for quite a while and I'm getting tired. Just 2-3 minutes, and we'll continue on with this implementation. All right. Okay. So where were we? Create test suite action. So we need to implement this action. It will be quite straightforward, actually. Let me jump to the C++ file, and I'll do that on the right. Okay, source. It's in the UI folder, view model CPP. Go to the bottom. It's a void function in the create test suite namespace. And it's called create test suite. Okay. Pretty repetitive. Nonetheless, I can actually copy the arguments in the rest of the function body. Let me fix my shift width. Still haven't fixed it for C++ here. Did you mean VM? Yeah, I meant that. View models, create test suite. And here we need to open the action body. So what does this need to create? Thankfully, I'll switch the two screens. So now it's on the left. On the right, I'll open my DB layer, which is right here, DB access header file. I have CRUD operations for every single data type. And I have this function, create test suite. And we can do that. It returns an optional of int 64-bit integer. That's the type of ID in SQLite 3. And we'll call it test suite ID. Okay. Now, to avoid doing std optional, I'll just do optional. All right. Open the brackets here. And we can use, oh, we already have it using std optional. In the CPP file, that's all right. In the headers, not at all. So here's my function, back to it. Create test suite. And it expects text values, which we thankfully have already. We just need to pass them. So in the create test suite view model, we have a title. We can pass. We also have, let me copy that. Title, description. Description. System prompt. And model. Okay, home. I saw your comment right now. And all right, we have a couple of those. What is the error we get? Too few arguments, expected 5, have 4. Yeah, we need to pass the state. The DBA state. Of course, this function is also stateless. And I have a comma here. So with that, we create the test suite in the database and we get back the ID. That's not enough at all. We also need to basically go back to the test suite's route and ideally also add the new test suite to the test suite's view model. But that will be a little bit more tricky because I don't know how to do it. If I should, I need to make a choice here. Here's how test suites work. We have a vector of test suites, and on init, they basically are populated. One option is to add a refresh function here and refresh all test suites. and the init will just call that refresh function, which is just retrieve them from database, render them. This is reliable, and the good thing about this is it will be reliable because it will take them from the database as a source of truth, but it's a little bit of an extra data that we're transferring. The existing test suits will also be fetched. I would probably prefer to do this now for simplicity and later optimize it more. So we have a comment. I'm new to the channel. What are you building? Yeah, so this is basically an IM GUI immediate mode graphical user interface app, native desktop app built with C++, which I'm working on. And it's for optimization of system prompts for AI agents, basically, or RAC agents, etc. You basically, the idea is to, let me show you. I'll run the app real quick. The idea is to have a very performant cross-platform app that also looks well. But on top of that, create these test suites of system prompts for AI agents, where you enter multiple user prompts, which you want to test for a system prompt, like test cases, sort of, and then do test runs as you tweak that system prompt. Imagine if you're building a C++ programming assistant, for example, and you want to tweak the system prompt so that it's just right, and you enter 15 questions, then you can tweak the prompt, do a couple of result runs, and ideally, here you get answers, which are currently very raw form, but ideally you would be able to compare answers side by side and see how they change when you tweak the prompt, so that you can ideally craft the perfect prompt. That's my idea. But also, besides the practical application, I just want to build something very performant with immediate mode, native, and also quite fast and enjoyable to use with low input latency. And so far, I really like how it works. All right, let me go back to the implementation. So as I mentioned, I'll probably refresh the view model entirely. And to do that, I will add right here another function in the test suites view model, which I'll call refresh. And that would be, it would need essentially only the DBA state. Actually, I collapsed this too early. The DBA state and the test suites view model. Of course, it's stateless. Sorry, that's my watch. I'll just copy that from here. All right. So this refresh function I need to implement. I'll move the two panes around and go to test suites CPP file. No, sorry, to the view models CPP file. I am implementing the view model right now. And here I should have the init. Yeah, here it is. And I'll just copy the init function because it will have similar logic. Actually, the init function will call that refresh function later. It will be void now, at least for now, while we don't have any special error handling. And it will also accept a test suites view model. All right. And let me see. Unexpected. I probably have a typo somewhere. Not sure where. Yeah, it's void. I renamed it somehow. Okay. What this does, it shouldn't take it shouldn't create a new view model now. it should, however, get all test suits from the database and set them right here. That's it. And this can now call refresh. Actually, it doesn't need that because it's the same namespace, I think. We can just pass VM and DBA state. Okay, good. I am good, I think. This is not ultra efficient right now, but it's good enough for now. I mean, ideally, some micro optimizations will happen later. What are you using to create the UI from, sorry if I misspell, Roseanne. So this is immediate mode. Let me run it again. I am building it with C++ and there I'm GUI, basically, which is an immediate mode library if you're aware of it. It renders graphical elements in immediate mode with many backends. I am using OpenGL3 and GOFW as the backend, which is, I already mentioned that, but GOFW is a windowing library and events library, which is cross-platform. It just uses the operating system layer to create a native window and an OpenGL context, and the UI is drawn with DRM GUI. And I have started to implement some custom theming because I also want it to look good and modern, sort of like libadwaita inspired UI, but just cross-platform. It should look well and sort of native, somewhat, not very native, but at least it should look neutral enough for a tool to say, and sort of modern. So yeah, that's it. I'm GUI. You can check it out. It's yeah, as I mentioned, it's immediate mode because it redraws the UI every frame, like 60 frames per second on this monitor, but only when you, currently I'm running it in this hybrid mode where it redraws only if there's events happening or animations. If I have this app in the background and don't do anything, it just idles and doesn't do anything. All right, so the refresh function, I think I implemented the refresh function. Let me go to view models again. Yeah. So let's test now. I'll run it just to check if the init of the test suits view model is working as expected still, and it does. I get my test suit. The next step is to now use it in the action, the form action I was implementing, which was in another view model, I believe. Should be right here in the bottom of this file. Create test suit, yeah. So basically we have our new test suit, and I can just use the test suits refresh method. It accepts what? Oh, no, that's in the, yeah, that's in view models, test suits refresh, and it expects a couple of parameters like the test suits VM and DBA state. So this will refresh the test suits after we create a new one, and ideally the last thing left is to just navigate the user, but I haven't passed the router yet, so let's just run now and we should be able to, in theory, no, let's not run yet. We should be able to create a test suit if we pass this, if we actually initiate this action from the UI. And to do so, I'll go to the create test suits. And here we can add this to the create test suit button. As this is immediate mode, an if statement will do, which is quite cool. And the action is in the view model, so I can say view model This is a little bit repetitive and very annoying, but what can you do? It expects 3 arguments. I'll open to the site because I forget how they were ordered, to be honest. View models. DBA state, the view model, and test suits view model. Okay. Which view model? Create test suit. I should have all of these. Do I? I do, yeah. Okay, so now expected outcome is we should be able to create a test suite. We won't be navigated back to the test suite's view, but we can go back manually and see if it's created, and then we'll pass the router and do that as well. So let's see. Create test suite. And yeah, whatever, string. So that should have worked. And it does, yeah. We have the correct data. We just need to go back and reset this state, of course. Let's do that real quick. All right. Let me just check the comments. Hi, Alex, one of my colleagues. Roseanne, can I use it in Zig? Probably. The thing is, DRM GUI is quite popular. Maybe not that mainstream, but in game development, it's very popular, very stable, and widely used library, and it's ported in many languages. I mean, first of all, you can use it in Zig, because as far as I know, Zig is completely compatible with any C libraries, but it could have first-class wrappers for Zig. It does have for Rust. And I'm sure there are Zig wrappers, yeah. I mean, so far, I've rarely seen anything ImGUI is not ported for, especially systems languages. So you could use it, definitely. All right, let me go back here. We needed to reset the fields on creation and navigate the user. I'll first navigate the user and then reset the fields, although it's sort of the same thing. It will happen instantly. I'll close this pane for now because it's a little bit annoying, honestly. To reset the fields, it will be very easy. They are in the create test suite view model, and we have title, description. Why do I have this? Oh, really? That's very interesting. I didn't know I made it like this. Let me see. Okay, let's go back. Let's first pass the router. I'll do that later. To pass the router, I need to open into the site, and we're in view models, so we need to pass it as well. Right here, create test suite. The router can go last. I believe it was like this, right? Although actually, that's not correct. I already have the router. So where would I pass it there? I can just, I already have the router in the view, and having this as part of the view logic would be better, to be honest. Let's do that. We have on click, I can do routing push, pass the router, and push the route, which is routing test suits. Yeah, I think that's better because it's this function has a single responsibility. Let's not overload it more. This logic right here is exactly for the view, I think. Yeah. All right, let's run it now. Should be able to create the item as we did before and be navigated backwards. All right, let's do a test title, test description, and create, and we go back. But the fields are not reset. And they're not because I had this issue. Let's see now. Oh yeah, I think that was normal for C strings. It's been a while since I've done these. Let me check. Let me go back to the view model definition, which is right here. Let me check. Yeah, I need to use string copy. I would rather use std string, to be honest. Convert these to std string. I don't want to manage their memory manually like this. And I'll still keep the fixed size. Okay. But I'll set the sizes at the to the IM GUI controls. Let's do that. They're right here in the UI layer views. Create test suits. And here we have an error now. std string. So I should be able to pass it like this, right? Cannot relationalize parameter of type character with an R value of type const character. Yeah, the problem is, of course, can I do that? Wait. Let me just check how I can pass it. Ah, yeah, there was data. That's right. Yeah. And I can set the size strictly here, I believe. Could use capacity. Indirection requires pointer operand. Ah, sorry. This is the macro. I can just pass 255. That should be fine. And that will actually constrain it, otherwise it can copy it and there can be issues. So let's do this same thing for description, which was 1000 and system prompt. Sorry, I need the data. System prompt was 10,000 for now. Model was what? Uh, 255, I believe. Yeah, these are pending, so no big deal. So we fix that. Let me check the comments. You're not printing any walks when... Oh yeah, so Roseanne noticed I'm not printing any walks. I don't have any error handling, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't, I would definitely add error handling. I'm just in very early stages and I still haven't done so. I would have logging, some kind of log file, and better error handling to the user, of course. I mean, I like this incremental approach. I start simple and then do modifications as I go. And yeah, I just haven't got to logging right now. Maybe it's a mistake. I should do it earlier. It would be helpful, but we'll see. Haven't got to it for now. We have, where was I? Create test suite, routing push, and now we can modify the fields. We have system prompt and model. So the user will not perceive that at all. He'll already be redirected to another place. I also have model. Yeah. There we go. Let me quit and run the app. So now the form should be kind of ready, at least functional. It should create the prompt, redirect the user back, and reset its fields, which is sort of the bare minimum. Let's try again. Okay. All right, segfault. So the strings probably. We go to the view models. Yes, definitely the strings. I need a resize callback and capacity, I guess. How does that work? Okay, I just want to make sure that's correct. Yeah. Okay, so this is a static resize callback. Let's add it to the UI layer for now, and then I'll move it to the view model or as a helper. Or I could move the input as a component, more likely. We have views, create test suites. Let me see. Let's have it right here. Yeah, it's static, so it should be fine for now. All right. Yeah, I'll format this later. Not too worried about it right now. I want to just check. So pass a couple of parameters here. Oops. We pass a flag that should resize. Fire resize callback. Is the resize callback in scope? Probably. Yeah, of course. I'll of course move it away. This is only temporarily. Did I rename it? I did. So we have an error with the resize callback data. Use of undeclared identifier title. Yeah. Need to pass this. Still have a problem with the resize callback. With an L value of type integer, I'm going to input text callback data pointer. Okay, interesting. Turn 0. What does it expect? With an L value of type. Okay, interesting. Let me check the comments. Yes, I have tried Qt, Saran. It's not my thing. It's not my thing for something like this. Yeah, I agree with the statement that Qt apps have a lot of features. I mean, if you look at KDE, for example, it definitely has quite a lot of features. But if you notice, I avoid sort of inheritance, object-oriented style a lot. Prefer some explicit resource allocation and init. And using Qt is sort of very strict, not very strict. Qt is very large library and has opinions about everything you do, and it has libraries, sub-libraries for everything like networking. Pretty much everything is predefined for you, and you have to sort of work within the model, and I really don't like that, because I don't like the model it works through, to be honest. Okay, so I got carried away. Resize callback, parameters, data. Yeah. So the parameter it tries to pass. It's actually integer? Seriously? Did I read that right? And I expect a pointer, but it's trying to pass not a pointer. Is that true? Let me check with quote. Yes, exactly. I don't believe I've changed the function signature in any way, to be honest. I think it's hallucinating a lot about this issue. Let me just Google that. Input text field with resize callback. Should be easy, much easier. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. So I have new text, size. Okay, here's the solution. Okay. So here's where this was added. Go back resize. Okay, let's try that. Is that merged even? Closed and merged. Okay. Close that. And how it's used. So this is actually a wrapper input text component. Let's use it as is specified. I'll just call it test input. So we pass a label. We can change that later. String wax. And yeah. Here it needs GUI namespace. Okay. Let's test that now. And if so, I will just abstract it as another one of my components. Is that called test input? Yeah, I have a little bit more in terms of flags right now. What does it expect? Label, string pointer flags. I have label. And flags. But are flags mandatory? Probably. What are the actions? I need the address. Sorry. And that should work, at least in theory. But I have to convert the other fields as well. And I'll comment out the multi-line for now because I don't have a wrapper for it. Actually, let's put comments in everything else and just check if that works. That would be enough. And I can abstract this to a component, forget about it. What do I have? No return statement in function. Let me see. Returning non-void type. I will actually go to it from here, create test suits. This is in views. It needs to return something. Okay, we've built successfully. Let's check. Okay, this actually works quite well. And we have a resizable input field. Let me check the comments real quick. So Saren mentions on the Qt discussion that he got into Qt because he does embedded. Yeah, Qt is widely used for embedded devices. I guess I've seen it in vehicle infotainments, coffee machines, everywhere. I mean, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just a different thing. And I seem to really like Immediate Mode GUI these days. So I'm experimenting with it because on modern hardware, it's not slower. I mean, I've seen a couple of articles benchmarking it, and with hybrid rendering and only re-rendering when there's events. Let me show you. There were a couple of articles measuring performance. Yeah, like this one, I think. From Forest the Woods. And immediate mode graphical interfaces were not slower in every case when compared to retained mode. They were actually more performant in many cases. And the thing is, this state and UI layer duplication of data causes so many bugs. And I mean, most of us that have worked in the UI space, web or something like that, have dealt with synchronizing state and state synchronization bugs for so long that immediate mode UIs are so refreshing to write, because the UI represents just the current state in one single source of truth, and there's no bugs related to the transformation between your model, your state, your actual state, and the state of the UI. These bugs don't exist because that transformation and tree of data doesn't exist at all. It just gets rendered. So yeah, a couple of people were asking, what are we building? Yeah, like Process mentioned, Suraj, I'm building a graphical user interface app with GUI, Immediate Mode C++ app. It's a prompt workbench a tool to refine and make system prompts better. You create these test suites, which these are SQLite database items, test suites, which the user creates. This is rough UI, currently work in progress. A test suite is like, has a system prompt, you specify a certain model from it, and you add multiple user prompts, which are just small LLM prompts, individual prompts, and then you run tests on it to see the answers to these user prompts given a certain system prompt. The idea is you make multiple test runs and then you compare them as you tweak your system prompt so that you can build a good system prompt for your agent you're building, or RAG solutions, or anything LLM related, where you have to craft a system prompt, sort of like a development tool for system prompts, so that you have this tool to check what changes on many user prompts as you tweak small things. Because with these models, when you tweak a system prompt only a little bit with a few words, it can have a lot of side effects, and you need to check ideally a large suite of user prompts to make progress and make your prompt better using some data at least. So that's the idea. The GUI looks clean. Yeah, I'm trying to make it look clean and non-obtrusive, because it's obviously not going to use native components. So my idea always in that case, if you can use native components, that's great. For dev tools or tools like this one, I think consistency between platforms is sometimes not bad, but you need to be careful and just use something minimal and good. And this is sort of inspired by libadwaita and material covers. It's very basic, and it will get a lot better. This is a very rough, very rough prototype, so to speak. That's a work in progress. And I'm currently making the form to create test suites, which is something very basic, but I'm currently working on that. So here's where we're at. We currently have it almost working. We need to abstract this test input to our UI components sort of layer we have right here. So let me close that and I'll show you the UI components layer. They're basically in the UI header. Here I have the namespace views, which are the screens of the app, and components. All of these in ImGUI are just functions, which I really like. And here I'll put the input and multi-line input with the handling of state and stuff. Suraj asks, why CPP? Yeah, process. A lot like a test suite or a regression test suite. Yeah, a lot like that, but specifically to test user prompts with an OpenAI API, which is sort of needed. I've hit into this need as I need to make some agents for work and for personal stuff as well, and couldn't find the right tool for the job, or I had to build something temporary that's somewhat complicated and don't like that. Why CPP? Why C++? Well, why not? I use Rust as well for some projects, and I guess for a newly developed project, you would either use at this level, Immediate Mode GUI, you could use Rust or C++, or maybe something like Zik. Zik is not, I wouldn't consider Zik very stable right now, although I think it's getting there. I don't know how frequently they change the API, but it's not my thing. And I have some Rust projects. If you go to my channel, you see I work on another app that's with Rust and ESVG, which is a similar, ESVG is the app. eGUI, which is similar to ImGUI, but in Rust land, immediate mode for Rust. But I have no problem using C++. Actually, if you write modern C++, you can have pretty good experience, I think. And actually, my experience with Rust, I think, made me a lot better at modern C++, because I copy patterns over and just reuse them. Okay, let's now go into the component. I will open it to the side. We need to extract the component from this create test suites. to the UI layer. Let's just copy the definition. Add it right here. Okay. So I have flags as well. Do I need flags? Absolutely not for now. I don't think I need flags. If I need them, I'll add them. And what else do we have? Not much. That's the definition. And I'll call it just input. Input, and I'll have input multiline. This way I'll later be able to add my styles in a component style. I am building this as a desktop app, yeah, and there's good reasons for that. First of all, there's good reasons for that. You could have it as a cloud-based app, but it would be a lot more complicated. Plus, you would have your data somewhere. This way you have an SQLite 3DB, and all of your test suites, test data is on your computer. I don't need to host a cloud server that I communicate with, etc. And you make your API calls directly from your computer without going to a server, third party. And that's not bad. You could actually do it on the client even if you have a server, but you need to store data somewhere. And it's somewhat problematic. It's a good fit for a desktop app because its nature is sort of working on a system prompt. And in my thought process, that's exactly the use case you want to use a desktop app for. You can use the OS to store in an SQLite database your files. You can do the networking calls, not worry about data privacy. A lot of issues and development disappears because you don't need to set up the whole infrastructure for users, rows, management, cloud, etc. Okay. Let me copy this definition now, and I'll go to components, I think. Yeah, and make a new file. I'll actually copy the top bar and make a file called input. Yeah, I have both input implementations here for now. They are quite straightforward. We have void UI components input. Let's go to input.cpp. I'll paste the definition here. All right. What's the problem? Functions differ only in return type. So input is a Boolean, of course. And the implementation is exactly this one, right here. Except we need to add flags, or inline flags, more like it. Whoops. Oh, come on. Okay. I should be able to remove that, and I need to include IMGUI. Okay. All right, and I need my resize callback. It can be a static in this file and not worry about it at all. Now this is very messy, so let's collapse it a bit so that it's readable. Okay. And I need to do the same thing for multiline. So let's just copy this. I think we're talking about essentially the same init. How was it called though? Input text multiline? Was that it? I think so. Actually, I think is there an example with multiline here? Maybe. Let me just check. Here in create test suits, I use multiline. Yeah, it seems to be. It expects a vec2 here. I think that's because, yeah, it expects height, probably. My multiline input expects a vec2 param of maybe height or measurements in place of wax. What should I add to keep? I'm asking Cloud because it needs to look up the implementation and tell me what the defaults are, ideally. Full width, 200 height. Okay. I mean, let's have that for now. I would not have it fixed like that, although I can pass a parameter for height. It's not that bad. But that should do it. Let me check comments and we can finish the implementation. We don't have a lot more in terms of comments. Let's see. What do we got? We have multiline and input. I need to add the components, the new components to the CMake lists file. I think it's called inputs, right? I need to check. Input. They're singular, all of them. And in the db.h file, we have the, in the UIH file, header file, we have the definitions, so I can remove that and use them. So let's test one. I can use UI, components, input. Remove the flag. It's quite nice in terms of API. Let's test though. Will it build? Because we made a lot of changes for that simple thing. All right. Okay, seems to be working just fine. Okay, let's now migrate the other fields. I'll just close that and go full screen. Let's go to source, UI. Where were we actually? Sorry, I'm getting tired. Create test suits. There we go. And now we need to migrate the IMGUI inputs to my wrappers, which is components, input, multiline. I'll call that description and pass a reference to create test suite view model description. All right. We have another multiline input here, which is system prompt. And then model, which is a single line input. Okay. And now let me open another Emacs session. Now I should be able to run and everything should work. We should have a working form except validation. It's one thing it doesn't have. Validation and it doesn't work with async, but besides that, pretty good. Now the width is very serious. Let me fix that. I'll just fix them at some size for now. Multi-line. The -1 here is not okay. I'll do 200, 200 for now. Later we need a better system for that. But I'll figure it out. I still don't know what width I want my actual inputs to have at all. Okay. Test title, test description, test system prompt. Test title, new, I'll say. And let's do GPT-5. There we go. And we have our item. Quite good. And the fields reset. They're not styled at all, but they work. And they don't have validation. So if I press, get an empty tank, which is not good. And we can delete for now. But it's a good start. And I think I'll stop here and continue later. We need to add validation, style to this, definitely. And then we'll see. Then we can replicate it for test suits, user prompts, etc. So that we have actual forms that work. And later we'll tackle deletion. So I think that went well. It was the first stream. I would think about it when I want to schedule these, and I'll schedule them. So if you want to tune in to the next stream and see how this goes, I'll be more than happy to chat. And thank you to everyone that joined. It was fun. It was very fun, actually. I didn't expect so many people to tune in and comment on that. I hope you got something, or at least some entertainment. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.